Philly Sports Talk Show. My name is Zach Starr. It's an absolute pleasure to be joining you on this nice afternoon. Today is June 25th, 2020. And of course, as always, joined alongside Gavin Tony. Gavin, great to have you on. How are you today?
Doing great today. Baseball's officially coming back, so I guess I can calm down about that. So yeah, how about you? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Today, folks, for those out there who have been watching us all week, baseball is not the first topic we're talking about today. It's nice for them to not be having any drama right now, so it's going pretty well.
Yeah, you ready to get after it?
I'm ready, so let's do it. We're going to be starting today. Our first topic of the day is going to be retaining to the NFL. We're going to be doing one of those rapid fire rounds today. It's called Surprise or No. So here's how it's going to work. I have here 100 facts from ESPN's website. It's all containing fantasy football facts for last season and this season. I'm going to read them off to Gavin, and we're both going to say if this was a surprise or not and what it could mean for the future. Gavin, are you ready?
Ready as I could be.
All right, here we go. Fact number 1. In 2019, 9 of the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks had at least 200 rushing yards.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
Last season, Dak Prescott had the second most deep completions in the NFL.
Seriously?
The third highest completion percentage on deep passes, the fourth most deep ball attempts, and the fifth highest yards per attempt.
What? No. Not Dak Prescott.
And continuing on the Dallas Cowboys. This year, the Dallas Cowboys drafted CeeDee Lamb, who was tied for second in the nation of touchdowns with 35-plus yards. And last season, Prescott had 11 weekly finishes as the top 12 quarterback. Only Lamar Jackson had more than him. So, Gavin, according to these stats, CeeDee Lamb's going to do well this year. What's Dallas's problem?
Dallas's problem is their defense this year. I really do believe that their defense got worse. You lose Byron Jones, and then also another problem is too, you don't know if Leighton Vander Esch is going to play this year. You know, he keeps using his head to make a tackle, and now his neck hurts. But at the end of the day, the main problem in Dallas is their cap room. They don't have any money, and this is going to be a problem next year. But I think offensively, if you look at this team on paper, they should be really great. But you don't know what kind of Dallas Cowboys you get. You can get the 14-2 or the 13-3 Dallas Cowboys, or you can get the 8-8 Cowboys. You never know which one you can get.
All right, as we continue down the list, we're on number 8. Since Amari Cooper joined the Cowboys, Prescott is the second best quarterback in QB in fantasy points. So it's pretty obvious that they wanted to pay Amari. They know that Dak can't function without him. So those are the first 8 so far. As of writing this, he is being drafted as QB 6 on ESPN. That's Dak Prescott. All right, we're down to fact number 9. Last season, Kyler Murray was the 4th in pass attempts outside the pocket. I'm not surprised. The O-line's pretty bad there, and he's a mobile quarterback.
You know, he was running for his life. That's no surprise to me.
Number 10, Kyler Murray was 21st in touchdown percentage on passes outside the pocket. So the passes outside the pocket seem pretty well, but it seems like he's going to be in the pocket throwing touchdowns if he's coming in 21st. And since 2018, new Arizona Cardinals addition, DeAndre Hopkins, is tied for the most touchdown receptions on plays where his QB is outside the pocket. Maybe this is a pretty good move.
Not surprising.
What do you think the record for the Cardinals will be this year?
I think around the 9-7 range, maybe 10-6. I think they sneak in at the end of the playoffs. I think the Rams are going to take a major step back this year. I'm not talking like 3-13. I'm talking more like 7-9, maybe 6-10. I think the Cardinals slide into that talk with the Seahawks and the 49ers.
Right now, it's going to be an interesting one. The NFC West, very competitive. Let's now shift gears this to Bruce Arians, starting from the Cardinals going to the Buccaneers. During Bruce Arians' final 2 seasons in Arizona, the Cardinals ranked 5th in pass percentage. They passed the ball 64% of the time.
I mean, well, Jameis Winston's the only quarterback went 30 for 30, so that doesn't surprise me.
And last season, the Buccaneers ranked 6th in pass percentage at 66%.
That kind of surprises me just a little bit.
66%.
That kind of surprises me a little bit.
And now let's talk about Tom Brady, the new QB in Tampa Bay. In Tom Brady's past 16 games with 40-plus pass attempts, he has 18.8 points a game.
I believe it. I believe it. Tom Brady has all these had all these weapons around him, and people talk about how Tom Brady didn't have anybody. You guys forget James White is arguably one of the best pass catching running backs in the league, and you also had guys like Sonny Michel who can also come out in the backfield get it. Also other guys, and he also threw one touchdown pass to Antonio Brown this year. So I believe it. I believe it. I'm not surprised about that at all.
And to put that in perspective, he would have been ranked QB6 this last year. So expect to see him make a big jump this year if he has thrown the ball 40-plus times.
And he has
because
more.
Jameis Winston was QB5 last year with over 305 fantasy points. And now, here's a big shocker in my opinion. Last season, Aaron Rodgers was held to less than 15 fantasy points in 10 of their 16 games.
Oh, I believe it, because you know what? I had him. I had Aaron Rodgers on my fantasy team, so I believe that, and that's not a surprise. And the one game I didn't start him was against Oakland Raiders. He has 34, and he had nothing else since that, and he was on the bench.
They're relying on Aaron Jones a lot. That was the difference this season for them. He also has had his lowest completion percentage this past year since 2015. So despite the Matt LaFleur hype, I have the Packers really falling off this year, and these stats are backing me up right now. And he also has the third lowest completion percentage in the NFL on deep passes. That's Aaron Rodgers for those just tuning in.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say, Aaron Rodgers, you can't blame Aaron Rodgers. You can't put the finger on him. He doesn't know when to throw to. We could argue about that another day, but who he had to throw to was Devontae Adams and the aging Jimmy Graham, who hasn't been good ever since he left New Orleans. So I don't know about that.
Now, what about this one? Aaron Rodgers was off target on 20% of his throws. That ranks the fourth highest rate in the NFL, which means fourth from the bottom.
Really? You're telling me the accurate Aaron Rodgers, the guy that broke Dallas's heart and made me happy for a whole month, was that not accurate that much this year? Wow. Okay.
In fact, since the start of 2018, only two other quarterbacks have been off target on a higher percentage of throws.
Wow. I'm surprised. I'm shocked. I really am shocked.
And now let's talk about some of the additions they made this offseason. We know that wide receiver is a position that they are really in desperate need of as much as the Eagles. Both pass catchers on the Green Bay Packers that were added via free agency this year are coming off of a major injury. Devin Funchess and the third-round rookie tight end Josiah DeGuara. So we'll see how that works out. They was the third-round rookie. And so in head coach Matt LaFleur's first season, Aaron Rodgers had the fewest pass attempts in a season in which he played all 16 games since 2014. So the run game is where it's going to be this year. That's what it seems like, Gavin.
Well, the run game hasn't been good since Eddie Lacy. And then Eddie Lacy sadly got a little bit thicker and he couldn't lose the weight that the Green Bay Packers wanted, so they ship him off to Seattle. And the same thing. So it doesn't surprise me. Running backs in Green Bay have never been consistent. Ever since Ahman Green, when they had Ahman Green, but nothing else has been consistent. So it doesn't shock me that the run game, now they got their guy, is going to be Aaron Jones.
And despite all of that, the Green Bay Packers went 13-3 and went to the NFC Championship game, their best record since 2011.
Well, Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl on his rookie deal. I think the rookie deal should be staying in the NFL. I don't think these guys, meaning quarterbacks, need these big deals. Look at Matt Ryan. He hasn't won a Super Bowl since. Tom Brady never really got a big deal. He's kind of been the discount guy, but he's won Super Bowls. Carson Wentz, hasn't had doesn't have a Super Bowl win yet. I think he gets another one. So we got to see. I think the rookie deals might be the magic.
Definitely. So now let's shift it over to our crosstown rival, New York Giants, in our division. Obviously, the Cowboys is the greatest rival, but the Giants are up there. Last season, the Giants were fourth in overall pass percentage, and they were third in the red zone pass percentage. So, Saquon Barkley was hurt a lot of last year, but that might be one of the things they're wanting to change this year is utilizing Barkley in the red zone. That might be the big thing because his stats are great, but when it counts, it seems like they didn't have a lot of confidence in either using him or he also could have been hurt. But Daniel Jones has got plenty of experience throwing in condensed zones in the red zone.
Well, I think Daniel Jones is going to be just fine. For those that know me, I was kind of making a little bit of a joke last year when the Giants picked him instead of Dwayne Haskins. But I think the Giants got the last laugh because Dwayne Haskins didn't really do much last year. I will say this, though. Saquon Barkley, yes, he missed a lot of time, but they're gonna run him into the ground. You need to start building around Saquon. Saquon is the guy there, and he needs some help.
Needs to know on too. So Daniel Jones, speaking of rushing, has at least 20 rushing yards in 7 of his 12 starts. For a rookie quarterback, not a surprise from my perspective. I think he's kind of one of those sneaky athletic guys. That doesn't surprise me at all.
I'm a little bit surprised. Daniel Jones strikes me as one of those pocket passers. And I got a chance to actually watch Daniel Jones in person at Duke, and he wasn't really a. And Duke's kind of like almost like the Ravens offense almost. It's like a lot of read option and stuff. And Daniel Jones really didn't keep the ball as much as everyone thought he did. So that actually surprises me a little bit about.
And despite having just 12 games in which he attempted at least 5 passes, Jones had 4 games with 28 or more fantasy points, tied for 3rd in the NFL.
Well, I believe it because listen, Danny Dimes is his nickname, and Darius Slayton is going to be a problem. I know he was a problem for Eagles fans this year too, and I think Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. And I don't really like Golden Tate, so I'm not going to speak on him because I got nothing nice to say. Those guys are going to be key down the road. I think Darius Slayton's going to have a bright young future in the NFL. I'm not talking Odell status, so I'm thinking around like he's going to be like a mid or maybe above average type player.
It's a shame they don't have Odell on the team anymore. That would be quite the wide receiver core. So from week 8 on last season, Jones was the 5th best quarterback in fantasy. Gavin, would he be one of those guys you consider drafting in fantasy this year?
If he's there in like later rounds, say like the 5th or 6th round, yeah. I'm not going to waste a first overall pick or a second overall pick on Daniel Jones, but I would consider like fourth or maybe 5th and up. Look, Daniel Jones isn't a bad quarterback. I'm not saying he's horrible, but the thing is, Daniel Jones doesn't have enough around him to go make me go waste a first round pick on him. Like, remember when I with my second pick in the draft, I picked the Seahawks defense? Well, they had a lot of pieces on there, and I picked them because I knew I knew they had a lot of guys on there. Just not enough around Daniel Jones for me to waste a first round.
All right, then how about this one? Then we're going to get on to the next section of the fun facts. Daniel Jones played 0 snaps with Saquon Barkley, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, Golden Tate, and Darius Slayton all on the field last year. Giants are my sleeper this year. I kind of like the Giants. I hate to say it as an Eagles fan, but I kind of like the Giants.
Well, I'd rather listen to Giants fans talk than Cowboys fans because Cowboys fans are delusional. They think they're going to win it every year. Shoot, they lost. Look, the Super Bowl could just end like, oh, we'll be there next year. I think Giants fans they're the worst too. Giants fans are pretty bad, but they're humble, you know. Because all you guys says, oh, well, Eli Manning the last like 10 years.
Definitely. All right, so switching gears now, let's talk about one of my sleeper teams, the Colts, this year, tracing it back to Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers, since 2014, has finished in the top 10 quarterbacks in total points one time. He's always had pieces around him. One time since 2014, he's finished in the top 10 of quarterbacks in fantasy.
Well, I told you, and I'm not surprised by that at all because Philip Rivers has nothing left in the tank. All right, I'm being honest with you, and I hate saying it because he seems like a genuinely nice person, but there's a time where you just don't got enough anymore, and you still try and try and try, and you guys just say, well, he went to the playoffs, but the defense really took him there. All right, the defense and Melvin Gordon rushing his way in there because Melvin Gordon thought he had leverage for the next season, but he really didn't. My thing is this: I don't think the Colts are going to make the playoffs this year because of Philip Rivers.
All right, now we're going to go through more of a rapid fire. I'm going to name them off, and then we'll get some of your thoughts after I name them. So, since the start of 2018, the 6th best running back in yards per rush after the first contact is Austin Ekeler. In Week 5 of last season, Melvin Gordon returned to the Chargers to take his spot back. From Week 5 on last season, Ekeler was the 5th best running back in fantasy, even after Melvin Gordon's return. And since he entered the NFL, Austin Ekeler is 3rd among running backs, minimum of 100 carries, and fantasy points per touch. Gordon is now a member of the Denver Broncos.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm high on Austin Ekeler. I had him last year in fantasy football, and I must say the world's most underrated player. And you want to talk about wasting a pick? I'll put a 3rd round pick on Austin Ekeler, or even a 2nd rounder. All depends on where my draft place is. But look, Austin Ekeler is one of those running backs where you look at him like, is he really going to give you what you just read off, and he does. He did that versus the Chiefs. He did that multiple times last year. He had 3 touchdowns in the first game of the season, and I was upset because I left him on my bench. So Austin Eckler is that guy, and I think I'm gonna take a hot take. I think Austin Eckler merges as one of the top 3 best fantasy running backs this year, maybe.
Quite a bold take, and now we're going to name off a few here for the Cleveland Browns. Between weeks 1 and 9, Nick Chubb was RB5 on a points per game basis, had about 19 points. Last season, in weeks 10 through 17, Chubb was running back 23 at 12.97 points a game. Last season, weeks 10 through 17, Kareem Hunt was RB24, one behind Chubb in those final few weeks. And as of this writing, Nick Chubb is running back 9 on ESPN, and Hunt is running back 27. Come on. What's going on here?
Well, at first I want to say Kareem Hunt, if you want to make the case this year, Kareem Hunt missed 8 games this year. So you guys got to remember that too. Now, on the other end of it, Nick Chubb played a lot of the games this year. But I will say this. Nick Chubb is not his fault. All right, he had a long touchdown run, 90 yards, I think, or 99 yards, one of the two. But the thing about Nick Chubb is he's running by a horrible offensive line. The same thing about Saquon Barkley. I still think if Saquon Barkley had a better offensive line and like Nick Chubb had better, they might be the top 2 best running backs in all football when it comes to fantasy football. But because the offensive line sucks, we don't know that. That's why we always think about Derrick Henry, because he can, no matter what his offensive line does, he's still going to break free no matter what.
Run the ball. It's so underrated in this league. Nick Chubb, I guess Freddie Kitchens saw Kareem Hunt coming in. I mean, that should be a 2-headed monster right there. That's a pretty good backfield.
Yes,
especially when Baker Mayfield has his accuracy problems. You got to take advantage of that. You can make the playoffs running the ball and relying on your defense. Yet a lot of great weapons for Baker Mayfield. So let's shift it on over to David Johnson, one of the most interesting cases in the NFL. So between weeks 1 and 6 from last season before his injury, David Johnson averaged 17.7 touches per game. During that stretch, he was top 2 in the NFL among running backs in receiving yards per game, routes run per game, and yards per reception. He was the 5th best running back in fantasy during that span.
Well, I don't believe David Johnson doesn't have a healthy enough time in NFL for me to say I would go out and go get a first-round pick for him. Now, back before he got hurt, when Carson Palmer was the guy there, and David Johnson was young in the league and was on a little bit of a tear, I still believe that there's better running backs in front of David Johnson. David Johnson is arguably top 10, but he's missed a lot of time in the last 3 years to even say, all right, I'm going to go get my first pick for my team. I'm going to go get him. If I'm that, I'm like, well, there's other players that can do better. Yes, David Johnson's not garbage. I think him and Deshaun Watson would do just all right. But the same problem with Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley is that offensive line in Houston is worse than what he just left in Arizona. So I don't know how this is going to work out.
All right, and let's bring it over to the Texans and talk about the stats from last season. Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson combined for about 1,500 rushing yards, 54 receptions, 452 yards in the air, and 14 total touchdowns on 382 touches. If you combine their stats, that player would have the 2nd most touches of any running back and the 5th best running back in fantasy. As of this writing, David Johnson is running back 18. This just screams overuse and injury again and again. Let's see what Bill O'Brien does this year with a running back like David Johnson, especially considering he got rid of the best wide receiver in the league for him. So,
well, keep this in mind. Bill O'Brien is a horrible GM and coach. You got rid of arguably your 2 best players on the team for a box of cookies and nothing. You got David Johnson back. That's the box of cookies right there. And you got nothing for David Clowney. So think about it. You just downgrade the Houston Texans by a lot. And J.J. Watt, he's getting up there in age, man. He gets hurt a lot, and he's not as effective as he used to be. I never found J.J. Watt as scary as everyone made him out to be. I think the man that everybody should be worried about is not there. So my point I'm trying to make here is the Houston Texans aren't going to be as great as they were last year because they just downgraded a lot, especially Deshaun Watson.
I do see some Eagles as I read down here, so that's coming up soon, but not yet. Let's go over to the team that I probably hate the most in the NFL right now, the New York Jets, because of how bad of an organization they are. Last season, Le'Veon Bell was 8th in touches per game. He had just 4 total touchdowns on 311 touches. The other 8 running backs with at least 300 touches averaged 11.5 touchdowns a game, 3 times the amount of Le'Veon Bell with the same touches. Gavin, I can't. That's so devastating. That's how bad the Jets are.
I'm gonna be nice. Wait, Adam Gase is the coach, right? Oh, I can't be nice. Listen, it starts with Adam Gase, and I can't even blame Sam Darnold. Like I said, Sam Darnold is playing against Casper the Friendly Ghost, apparently, because he doesn't see nobody else on the field. He doesn't see his teammates. He just sees Casper and the defense, and barely even sees the defense at the time. He's just throwing the ball to nobody. Look, Le'Veon Bell is a phenomenal running back for his stature. A great, once again, another best pass catching running back, and he's really patient and on the ball. But I will say this, Zach. That's another one of those cases where the offensive line sucks, and there's nothing much you can do about it. I remember Le'Veon Bell versus the Eagles this year, where we were just collapsing on Le'Veon Bell like it was nothing. I don't know what else you could do. When your offensive line sucks, running the ball is not going to be fun.
I agree. I mean, you have a guy that big who can catch the ball and do as well as he does. They didn't use him right. So let's talk about some of the acquisitions that they did, and then we get over to our Eagles. This offseason, the Jets signed center Connor McGovern from Denver, tackle George Fant from Seattle, and drafted 6'7", 364-pound, 2019 Jacobs blocking trophy winner Mekhi Becton. As of this writing, Le'Veon Bell is projected to go in the 5th round of fantasy football drafts. Are they really going to be better this year?
No, they're not. And I'm going to say it again. I'm going to make it very, very clear till something happens. They need to fire Adam Gase. They need to. I don't know why he got a job. If you got a guy that ruined the Dolphins, who was somewhat decent, I guess you want to say that. Ryan Tannehill makes the playoffs, gets hurt. They run into a Pittsburgh Steelers team, arguably unfair. Now check this out, though. That Miami team, they had a couple people there that wasn't as talented as are on paper this year. But who was the coach? Adam Gase. The Jets, when they had Todd Bowles took them to a 10-6 with Ryan Fitzpatrick. They didn't make playoffs because there was another team up front of them that went. And what happened there? They fired Todd Bowles, or Todd Bowles goes to Tampa as defense. Adam Gase comes in, and they've been trash ever since. Fire Adam Gase. Oh, yeah, and
Gase.
Go ahead.
Gase is just not good at his job, and he lost that locker room last year, according to a lot of inside information.
I want to read this comment. Jamal Adams mentioned that Gase is the main reason he wants out. He wants to leave the Jets. And also another comment that line never works and can't get leverage. So they need help. They need serious help.
And I still don't buy the Sam Darnold hype. It's his 3rd year. At some point, you got to show me that you're good at something. So we'll keep breaking that down as we go along. Let's get now to the Philadelphia Eagles. In the 48 regular season games, Doug Peterson has been the head coach of the Eagles. There have only been 6 instances where a running back got at least 20 carries. And those 6 instances came from 4 different running backs.
Well, we emphasize this a lot. We emphasize the Eagles need to run the ball a whole bunch. And I'm surprised. I'm not really surprised that that's what the number is, because we know when Carson Wentz is in the game, they don't run the ball. Now, you got Miles Sanders, arguably upcoming, could be top 5 running back at the end of this year, could be top 10. Mike Grace top 10 last year. I know he did. So maybe top 5. A mini Saquon, but he hates that. So that's what's going to drive him to be better. So, Zach, let me ask you this. Why does this team not run the ball when they got arguably good running backs? And they had never had a really bad running back, except for the 1 year where everybody got hurt and it was Josh Adams running the ball. But arguably he wasn't that bad either. So why can't we just run the ball?
Josh Adams, first of all, wasn't even bad, and Wendell Smallwood wasn't bad. It's situational running. On 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, Ron Jaworski tweeted this back after the Vikings or the Cowboys game, the first one. And so, the statistics there, they throw the ball a lot more. They're a lot more pass-heavy than they were in 2017. Doug gets lost in the moment. He trusts Carson Wentz a little more than he should, even though he's going to his 5th year. He's not a veteran in this league. You got to put the ball in your running back's hands, especially when you have great guards, a great O-line. And he hasn't had that guy to tell him, hey, Doug, I think that you're getting caught up in the moment. Let's run the ball a little bit. We're not down by much, or something like that. The same way Frank Reich did that back in 2017. And I'll say this till the end of the day. Frank Reich is the reason why we won the Super Bowl. He's the one who was able to make Carson Wentz into an MVP. He's the one that made a system for Nick Foles to work. Garrett Blount was bulldozing all season. With the running back room is phenomenal this year. It was phenomenal last year, the year before that. I get it. But there's no excuses. And the Eagles last year were 0 and 7 when they ran the ball less than 25 times, and 1 and 9 or 9 and 1 when they ran the ball more than 25 times. The correlation is very strong, and it goes back before that year. So, as it says, we have a great running backs coach, and so people will complain about how he hasn't gotten an offer for offensive coordinator. I think a guy who's good at his job deserves to go up, but he's so good at his job. I want him to keep developing running backs and keep doing what he can. But someone's got to get in Doug's ear this year and say, you got to run the ball more. We did bring in a senior offensive assistant who worked with the Niners last year and worked with Lamar Jackson the year before. So I hope to see that we do run the ball a lot more. So, Gavin, any last statements on that before we get down to some more?
Real quick. I do know once Frank Wright left, he's an offensive creative mind, man. I mean, look at him. His first year in Indiana, he took Indiana at a dismantled Andrew Luck to the playoffs, and they got unlucky versus the Chiefs, but they still went. So someone needs to get in Doug's ear, like, hey, we got to run this. We got to run this ball, especially with the running backs we have. They're not trash. They're really good, especially Boston Scott too. I'm really high on this year. So hopefully we run the ball more, and maybe I think running the ball will save Carson Wentz a little bit more too.
I agree, and that's one of the reasons that Jalen Hurts potentially is here. Okay, we got a few more cool facts here for the Eagles, about 5 more. In the first 7 games last season, when Jordan Howard, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, your friend Nelson Aguilar, and sometimes Deshaun Jackson were healthy,
I heard that.
Miles Sanders averaged 11 touches per game. In that 7-game stretch, only one time did an Eagles running back get more than 15 touches in a game. From week 14 on last season, Boston Scott averaged 15 touches per game. He was the 7th best running back in fantasy football during that stretch. Last season, there were only 5 running backs with a minimum of 100 carries who had a higher percentage of carries that went 10-plus yards than Jordan Howard. So early in the year, they really could have prevented some things if they ran the ball a little more. And you think about the Dolphins game, people, even then, they ran the ball like 17 or 16 times, and people are yapping at me. Come on, Zach, it was the defense's fault. If you know the defense is struggling, you slow it down on offense and you tire them out. That's how you slow down a red-hot offense, especially when you're playing against the worst rush defense in the league. We knew that going into the day. I'm not even going to start. We're going to take a day, Gavin, where we're going to just sit here and watch film from the Dolphins game. We might do like a weekend film special. And I'm going to sit here and just chirp the whole time about how things went so wrong during some points. Don't let the last 4 games let you forget what happened in the middle of the year. I'm not going to let Carson Wentz saved Doug Peterson's job. I'm gonna keep it like that.
You wanna talk about? Well, we could definitely do that because we also got to go back to the Detroit game too. Detroit sucks. I'm not going to speak on that. Miami, they're going to get better this year, but they were trash last year. You scream running the ball, and I do too. But I preach Jim Schwartz. I think he needs to go. He has to be one of the worst defensive coordinators that I've seen. And I've never seen someone be getting torched so bad. When you lose, right? It's like I could waste a whole hour on this. When you lose to the Miami Dolphins and you let them put up that many points, how do you still have a job here? How?
There's no answer. And one thing too, and I think Howie Roseman noticed this, what takes Fletcher Cox 13 weeks to wake up every year? That's why we got Javon Hargrave. It wasn't that we had backups in. It wasn't that we had guys struggling in the secondary. The guys who you expect to do their job did not. That's where it starts. It doesn't start with Sidney Jones screwing up. Do you really expect Sidney Jones to do well?
No.
That's before his breakout and what I think is going to be coming up. But Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, irrelevant in that entire game. Ronald Darby picked the ball and they got burnt by Devontae Parker. The guys who were supposed to do their jobs didn't. And that is what the difference maker was for some of the Eagles games last year. We are going to move on so that we can keep ourselves from getting into a very upset war here, even though we're both on the same side. We're going to get to that. We're going to debate whether or not Jim Schwartz should be fired one of these days, and I think we do agree on that. So we'll just be
They-
ranting to our viewers the whole time.
Protest. He needs to go.
Definitely. All right, so now let's keep going here. Through the first 10 weeks of last season, Jordan Howard was the 20th best running back in fantasy. Since Howard entered the NFL in 2016, he's the third in rushing yards and seventh in rushing touchdowns. And that is one that I did know. I was pointing out. I did point it out before the season started. So I think that that's definitely a big factor. In this year's NFL, all right, so that's the Dolphins. So we're going to get to that next. Anything else, Gavin, on the lack of using running backs, to say the least? We've talked about this so much. And now we have stats in front of us. So I don't know what to say.
How do you have Jordan Howard and a guy that's arguably compared to Saquon Barkley, and you don't run the ball? I say this every time. We should have never got rid of LeGarrette Blount, because that solved a lot of red zone problems, y'all. That solved a lot of it. Carson Wentz after passing the red zone, he just could have handed the ball off. You shouldn't have got rid of. Just common sense. Should have kept Jordan Howard. I agree. We could have had a nice 1-2 back system, because that's what the league is going to nowadays. Everybody has their two backs. All right, everybody got, in Baltimore, you got J.K. Dobbins now with Mark Ingram, and arguably Lamar Jackson. That's three. I don't want to talk Eagles, especially when it comes to running the ball. I can't. Not today.
All right, we're going to get to the next one. But before we continue, yes, I agree we should have kept Jordan Howard. And Carson Wentz was the best quarterback last year in the red zone. So just remember that. So when people want to compare Josh McCown to Carson Wentz, yes, McCown got down the field, couldn't finish in the red zone. We would have beat the Seahawks if Carson was healthy. But that's for another day. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Over the past 3 years, when Stephon Diggs was off the field, Adam Thielen was targeted on 25% of his routes. During that same stretch, Thielen scored on 11% of his receptions with Diggs off the field. For his career, Thielen is averaging 23 points per game when seeing at least 9 targets. So I counted the Vikings out before, but looking at the stats, I might be thinking back. Could Thielen return to being a true wide receiver one this season?
Not Kirk Cousins as quarterback. No, we can't. Look, I never seen someone get paid so much money for 2 playoff appearances, and he hasn't even gone, and he only went to 1 playoff appearance and knocked off the New Orleans Saints. Remember, this is his 3rd year in Minnesota. He let us go. He didn't make it to 1 year. He let us go the next year. Thank you, Kirk. And then last year, he finally beats the Saints. Barely. Look, Adam Thielen is a great talented wide receiver. He really is. All right, I'm not going to downplay Adam Thielen's success in the NFL, because I'm not going to. But I think Adam Thielen, we're going to figure out who it really was. Was it Stephon Diggs or Adam Thielen? Once again, I think both those guys complement one another, because if one was getting double teamed, then the other one was open. And I think this year, Adam Thielen is a true number 1 with Justin Jefferson right behind him. So the ball's in your court now, bud. So we got to see what you're really made of. And Kirk Cousins, I don't know how you got another extension. I don't know what you did to do that. You didn't do anything in my eyes. So you got to step up. You got to go somewhere. You go from an NFC Championship team to didn't make it to a wild card or to a division team. So I don't know what you're doing.
All right, so now I'm going to read off 2019 per game averages for 2 wide receivers. You're going to tell me which one you think is better. Wide receiver A, 4.9 receptions a game on 7.4 targets, 74 yards receiving, 15.1 yards, 15 yards after the catch, 31 routes, and half a touchdown per each reception. So totaling at 15.4 fantasy points, that's wide receiver A. Wide receiver B, 4.7 receptions on 8 targets, about 80 yards a game, which is 6 more than the previous one, 16.8 yards per catch. The previous guy was about 1 yard less, 35 routes, and about 15.2 fantasy points. Are you going with wide receiver A or wide receiver B?
B, because B had more yards and he just did a little bit more better things than A did.
Wide receiver B is Michael Gallup, and wide receiver A is Amari Cooper.
Really?
Yes,
it makes
sir.
sense. It makes sense now, actually, because you know what, Amari Cooper was getting double team because that's Dak's safety shield. So that's no surprise now I think about it.
And then one last fact: Michael Gallup was injured in Dallas's Week 2 game against the Redskins and would miss the next 2 games. So he missed 2 games because of an injury. Amari Cooper decided to miss the Patriots game and the Eagles game at the end because he was getting locked down. So Maybe they should have just let Amari go and keep Michael Gallup. They got such great wide receivers in Dallas. They're such a nice offense on paper. So let's continue it. In 9 games from week 9 on, Gallup led the Cowboys in target shares, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, averaging over 15 points a game. From week 9 on last season, Cooper averaged 12.9 fantasy points. And he's wide receiver 11, Amari Cooper is, and Michael Gallup is wide receiver 31. A 20 wide receiver gap. And no,
Well,
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point in the comments here that Amari Cooper's getting cornerback 1 on him and Gallup is getting cornerback 2 or 3. CeeDee Lamb's going to have such separation this year. There's no better situation for a rookie wide receiver than CeeDee Lamb. This is going to be crazy for Dallas. No excuses for them this year.
Well, no. I hope they lose. I don't want to hear happy Cowboys fans because that ruins my mood. Look, I'll be honest with you though. Amari Cooper will always catch. Amari Cooper's a freaking nature unless you're going against Darius Slay, which is twice a year now. So you got to think about, well, Michael Gallup, yeah, he got CB 2 and 3. Gallup's going to be the third wide receiver now behind CeeDee Lamb. So CeeDee Lamb's going to get the number 2. So I'm expecting Gallup to have a better year, or CeeDee Lamb. Both those guys have better years than Amari Cooper. I'm just saying, because Amari Cooper draws your double teams in your number 1 corner. So maybe it's Dak. I'm not sure.
All right, now let's talk about it. Last season, Courtland Sutton, the Denver Broncos wide receiver, had 26% target share, the 6th highest in the NFL. Last season, he only had 3 games with more than 5 catches. His 55.1% career catch is 74th among qualifying wide receivers in that span. Is that a shocker to you for a guy as good as him?
It is, actually. It really is. I don't really know much on him. I'll be honest. I really don't know much on him. He doesn't really catch my eye a lot. But I will say this though, I mean, he's good in fantasy. So let me ask you a question about this, Star. Would you waste how high would you draft him?
It's hard to say. The next point that I get to talks about the other guys that they've added. He'd probably be a 3rd rounder for me or 4th. He could be backup wide receiver. I would probably want to go with guys like Amari. I'd take Amari Cooper over him. I take a lot of guys over him. Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen. I would even take, but. I don't know. I would take him before any rookies. I would say that. I would take him before even guys like Justin Jefferson, who's going to get some good catches this year, even Henry Ruggs. So, no, I think that he's kind of in that intermittent range, and he kind of broke out last year as a player once Emmanuel Sanders left. We'll see how he does this year, and we're going to get to the next point with this. This year, the Broncos spent their first 2 draft picks on highly regarded wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler out of Penn State, and added running back Melvin Gordon in free agency and his 92 receptions in the past 2 seasons. Drew Lock has plenty of mouths to feed. It seems like they built that team correctly. They seem to be pretty humble. They're not any outspoken like with Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield situation. But Courtland Sutton's definitely getting most of the attention this year. We're going to see guys like KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy really have a good year again. Another great situation for rookie wide receivers.
So you're sold on Drew Lock, and dating back to a couple episodes ago. If you guys missed them, go watch them. I suggest it was really good. I don't like Drew Lock. I don't believe in Drew Lock. Drew Lock is not the guy. And like Philly just said, they have no corners either. So, first of all, you want to talk about the offense. Yeah, you got Jerry Jeudy, you got KJ Hamler, all right? You got a good running back there, right? Who is Drew Lock? But who is Drew Lock, though? That's what I'm trying to figure out. What can Drew Lock do? Is he a mobile guy? Is he a pocket passer? Because the offensive line sucks. If you're a pocket passer, ask Joe Flacco. He went down. He didn't get back up. They got rid of him. So I'm not sold on Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock is the only downfall to the offense. And you got Philip Lindsay in the backfield as well. Don't forget that.
Definitely. And they also have another guy, Royce Freeman, who was supposed to be good. He kind of fell off, but he has some potential. Drew Lock, my MVP dark horse pick. So we'll continue talking about that as we progress. In his rookie season, Marquise Brown got at least 4 targets in a game 9 times. Is he going to be wide receiver 1 for Baltimore this year? Or target number 1? Because remember, they went to the tight ends a lot last year.
Well, I don't think he'll be target number 1. I think Mark Andrews will always be target number 1. But when it comes to wide receiver 1, yes, he will. But I still believe that on the wide receiver side of the ball, they need a true number 1. I don't think Marquise Brown has enough. I mean, we saw it versus a horrible dumpster fire of a Dolphins team. They lit him up. They lit him up. So I don't know. I like Marquise Brown. He's just too inconsistent sometimes, and he can go missing. And he's really injury prone. But Mark Andrews will always be Lamar's true number one. He is a big tight end, a big quick tight end too. So yeah,
He'll be a top 5 tight end by the end of this year if he's not already.
yeah,
So Marquise Brown in games where he was targeted at least 4 times averaged about 15 points per game. Pretty good. Extend that rate over a 16-game season, and Brown would have finished as wide receiver 13 ahead of Tyler Lockett. And currently, Brown is wide receiver 32, projected to go in the 9th round of a 12-person fantasy football draft.
that seems respected. That seems right. I would even give him an 11th round pick because that's just how Marquise Brown really is.
And he has the injury problems too, not abnormal for a speedster. So, over the past 3 seasons, Travis Kelce, who's tight end 1, has outscored tight end 10 by 120%. On top of that, during that same time span, 3 years, Christian McCaffrey has outscored running back 20 by 117%. So it shows you how important those 2 positions could be. Even though you get a guy later, it might be worth investing early on for tight end at least, because the gap seems to be a little bit closer for the running back 20 to the running back 1 at 116% than the difference between running tight end 1 and tight end 10 at 120%. So could a tight end nowadays start being a much earlier pick than people initially thought?
Well, yeah. You gotta look at tight ends as safety blankets for a lot of quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz.
I think Derek Carr, Darren Waller for the Raiders too is another one that no one really talks about. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, the couple is back together now, and they're gonna be doing great things. I think we're going to start realizing, like, we always pick running backs first. I think tight ends might go before quarterbacks next in the draft. I think you got first round running backs because running backs are the most valuable things. Then I think you give them maybe your quarterbacks or tight ends, a mixture of both. All depends what the tight end is too. You gotta remember, if it's Patrick Mahomes, yes, I'm grabbing Travis Kelce. If it's Lamar Jackson, I'm grabbing Mark Andrews. If it's Carson Wentz, I'm grabbing Zach Ertz. Guys like Darren Waller, I'm not too sold on, but I might grab him. Like Rob Gronkowski, I'll get him. It just all depends on who's giving them the ball.
Right. So as we looked at, the largest gap is tight end. And then so far, the second largest is running back. We have 2 more positions we're going to do. Over the past 3 seasons, Russell Wilson's outscored QB10 by only 30%. QBs are getting less valuable. You can draft them later and later now without a problem, and they're replaceable. Unless it's Patrick Mahomes. But Mahomes has not played 3 seasons yet. We'll see what his point differential is after this season. And then from week 13 on, the one before that, Michael Thomas has outscored wide receiver 20 by 71%. So according to these stats, if I were to draft in fantasy, I would want to get my according to pure analytics, you're getting your tight end first because of how big of a gap it is. And then you're going down to your running backs or even interchangeable, because I know that tight ends earlier are a hot take. But wide receiver at 71% for Michael Thomas, it's not worth reaching for a wide receiver. And then very importantly, QB 10 and 1, only a 30% difference. So I mean, if people are trying to get their fantasy football advice, here's your go-to. Maybe we'll start doing this on Thursdays during football season. So pretty interesting there. Now, from week 13 on, there were only 7 players in all fantasy football with more points than Tyler Higbee, the tight end from the Los Angeles Rams. He's a big sleeper this year. He has a lot of George Kittle elements, yards after the catch. I love it. I still think the Rams are a good team. It's Jared Goff's safety blanket. I like Tyler Higbee.
All right, well, you know what? Fine. I'm going to put them on spot this year. They have to show me something. Enough said. I believe that Todd Gurley was the guy for the Rams. Todd Gurley, and I think Brandon Cooks was a little bit too, but Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. But Todd Gurley saved Jared Goff. Todd Gurley is the reason why Jared Goff has money now. I still think Jared Goff owes Todd Gurley $25 million saying, hey, thank you. Appreciate it. But we'll have to see. If that's what you believe, I don't believe in that. So I'm just going to wait and watch.
We'll see. So now let's get to the next one. For those thinking of drafting Rob Gronkowski, he only had 3 games in 2018 with more than 4 catches, and he tied his career low with 3 touchdowns. Do you think the year off is going to help him, hurt him, or is he going to stay the same for his production?
Well, you think about Rob Gronkowski is 6'6". He takes a lot of hits. We saw Calvin Johnson, who's 6'5" or 6'4", lead the league early because of the hits he took to his knees a lot. That's the main factor as you get older. Knees start to hurt a lot more. I will say this though, the year off, and that New England system turned into a running system as well that year. So I do believe that Rob Gronkowski and a new passing system, because they don't have a running back, a for sure running back that you would like to call down there in Tampa Bay. So I do think that Rob Gronkowski has the potential to go be the old Rob Gronkowski that we all know. Him and Tom Brady with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You don't know who is going to get the guy. That could be your only argument against us. Who's going to get the ball? But I like the chances for Rob Gronkowski this year.
And despite all of that, he still finishes tight end 9 that year. And last season under Bruce Arians, despite inconsistent tight end production, Tampa Bay was 11th in tight end targets and tight end red zone. So we could see a touchdown almost every other game for Rob Gronkowski, even if he's splitting it with either Cameron Brate or O.J. Howard. So a lot of interesting stats there. So there's so many mouths to feed in
You
Tampa
know how
Bay.
much Brady loves Gronk, so I'm gonna just leave that like that.
And we'll keep talking about that as it progresses. Now let's talk about the objectively best tight end in the league, in my opinion, George Kittle. His rookie year in 15 games, 43 catches on 63 targets, 515 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 359 routes run. Last year, there was a rookie tight end in the league. I'm not going to say his name, but he had 40 catches on 63 targets versus 43 on 63 for Kittle, 562 yards versus 515 for Kittle, 3 touchdowns versus 2 touchdowns for Kittle, and 349 routes run, which is 10 less than Kittle in his rookie year. Kittle played 1 less game than this rookie tight end. Do you want to guess who this rookie tight end is?
Is it T.J. Hawkinson almost, or Noah Fant?
Noah
I
Fant.
think
Noah
was-
Fant out of Denver. Talk about some of the weapons out there. So his stats were either identical or better. So, and George Kittle's second season, he finished as tight end 3. So Noah Fant could be up there for those that are looking at it. And then our final 3. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to read this comment so I cut you off. Gronk and Howard is another nasty duo like Ertz and Goddard.
I agree. And they also have Cameron Brate. They could run trips formations with 3 tight ends. So good luck defending that. And put Mike Evans on the other side of the field. Someone's going to be wide open. Bruce Arians has a lot of work to do, and I think he's going to succeed. I'm very excited to see that. Our final 3 facts, we're down to 98 already. I know we've taken up almost 50 minutes. We have one more conversation to talk about today as well. Last season, Hayden Hurst was 7th among tight ends in yards per target. Again, he was on the Baltimore Ravens. And last season, the Falcons, Hurst's new team, were 10th in tight end targets. So they line up pretty well and tied for 6th in tight end targets, in red zone targets for tight ends. So if you're looking for a potential backup tight end that can come in late in the year for you, Hayden Hurst seems like your guy. And Matt Ryan seems like he's going to like him after going from Austin Hooper, who's now in Cleveland. So
Well,
100
Matt
facts,
Ryan, huh?
surprise or no? 100 facts, surprise or no? Fantasy football.
I was kind of surprised with someone I really wasn't with. Last one on the Hayden Hurst. Matt Ryan made Austin Hooper start. Matt Ryan is the reason why Austin Hooper got money in Cleveland. Okay, because Matt Ryan couldn't get the ball to Julio Jones to save his life, so he just gave it to Austin Hooper, and Calvin Ridley was here and there. So Hayden Hurst, if you were behind Andrew's shadow, so this is your chance to shine.
And the reason Matt Ryan is the way he is because of Kyle Shanahan.
Yes.
All right, let's get to it. Our final topic of the day. We are breaking down a pretty interesting take. Zion on the Pelicans says he's ready to come back and play. So let's assume that the Pelicans find a way to get the 8 seed. They will more than likely, or I'm pretty sure mathematically they will, play the 1 seed Los Angeles Lakers. Revenge time. The 2 biggest factors, I'd say, are Anthony Davis getting his revenge on the Pelicans, even though he won it out, and Lonzo Ball, who got traded away from the Lakers. Who do you think is starving for revenge more, Lonzo, or even Brandon Ingram and Josh Hart, if you want to throw them in, or Anthony Davis?
Well, I think it was more, not really AD. Remember, first of all, I just want to make this very, very clear. This matchup is not as hype as it should be. You know why? Because AD is not going back to New Orleans, and Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and Lonzo Ball are not going to LA. So let's just make that point very clear. Now, second off, I think the people with more revenge is the guys that got traded for AD, and that is Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, and Lonzo Ball. You remember, Kyle Kuzma's garbage this year. They got rid of them for Kyle Kuzma. And Kyle Kuzma's underperformed big time this year. Vice versa, But Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball arguably having great years. Brandon Ingram more. Josh Hart's doing Josh Hart things, which is being a great role player off the bench, coming and getting maybe his nice little 10 and 12. And Lonzo Ball, Anthony Davis is the best thing to happen to Lonzo Ball's career. Oh no, not Anthony Davis, excuse me. Zion Williamson is the best thing to happen to Lonzo Ball's career. Lonzo Ball is known as a great passer. Arguably, he might go down as one of the best passers in the league this year. You just throw the ball to Zion. Zion's going to jump like 20 feet in the air and come get it, and no one's going to fight him for it in midair. They're not going to do the Jordan rule for him. Now, let me check this. Now, I want you to check this out. If this matchup, think about this. This matchup, right? Let's say the coronavirus wasn't a thing. Let's say NBA, everything was normal. We're going to New Orleans, and then you got to go to LA. Do you know how much that matchup would be? Hearing Anthony Davis being booed in New Orleans for 2 games, back to back, maybe even more. And I don't think they go down easily either, the Pelicans. I don't think they win the series, but I don't think they go down.
So we are getting some information here. This isn't that big of a surprise. Philly, thanks for bringing this up. NBA execs are reporting that are pushing for a first-round match between LeBron and Zion Williamson. Not a big shocker, to say the least. That's one of the reasons that this format was kind of made the way it was, 8 games and then the play-in tournament. So, I mean, they want this to happen. I mean, Gavin, like you said, they're not going to New Orleans. You're not going to hear them booing Anthony Davis or I don't know if they would boo the former Lakers in LA, considering that they were traded against their will. But I'm still laughing at the fact that Kyle Kuzma was not involved in that trade. Do you think that LeBron wishes he had Lonzo Ball now, considering that Avery Bradley especially is now not going to be going with them to the bubble?
I don't think he wishes he had Lonzo Ball now. I think he wishes he has Brandon Ingram now. I think Brandon Ingram over Kyle Kuzma now is better. Before we were saying, well, Kyle Kuzma over Brandon Ingram. But I think if you ask LeBron James, Mr. GM himself, he'll trade you away as soon as if he doesn't like you, you'll be gone in a click. And I think if he could redo the trade, he would be like, Magic, this is not what I want. I want Brandon Ingram here. And I want Kuzma to go. Because there was a lot of talks about trying to keep Kuzma here. And you finally get one to go, and boom, this is what happened. Now let me get back to this. I like how teams like Portland and New Orleans, thank you, Philly, for the mention. I want to say this. It's crazy how they're just trying to automatically throw Ja Morant out of the playoffs. Ladies and gentlemen, Ja Morant will go down as MVP in 2 years. I guarantee it. Ja Morant's not a scrub. I think Ja Morant was the best player, second best player behind Zion in this draft, but best guard in this whole entire draft. Look, everybody like Portland, and this is why I have a problem with Damian Lillard. They felt entitled to the 8th pick, and I don't see why. Like, they're just thinking like, oh, it's theirs. Like, you guys forget there's 8 games, but if the Grizzlies win 4 of those 8 games, how are y'all going to get in? I don't get it. See, and it's like, I'm going to ask you this question. Yes, everybody wants to see Zion Williams in the playoffs. But why is it always that we got to feel entitled to make the person that's not in it be in it? Like, why can't we just accept the fact that they might not make it? Like, Portland and the Grizzlies, or not the Grizzlies, the Pelicans might not make it, and we just got rocked with Ja Morant. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, Ja Morant did beat the Lakers this year.
It's a great question. So it's about money at the end of the day. They want to get more views for Zion versus LeBron. It makes sense. 2 first overall picks, a lot of hype building around them. But I'll put it to you this way. As far as the Blazers, they have no right to feel entitled to that position. They probably figure, hey, we were in the Western Conference Finals last year, got swept. But they feel entitled to that spot because they don't understand how they got here. It's like you just dropped, like Damian Lillard was there for almost all the games this year that they lost. And then you drop him in out of nowhere. He's like, wait a minute. How did I get here? I'm supposed to be in the playoffs. I'm supposed to be over there. It's like, no, you're not. You have 8 games. You have a play-in tournament. You have an opportunity. Shut your mouth, though. All right? He hasn't opted out. Today's the 25th. He did not voice himself after that original statement where if I have no legitimate chance of going to the playoffs, you do have a legitimate chance. He hasn't talked about it. You are the reason that your team's not in the playoffs. You got to do better at elevating your teammates. And even if your team didn't play well this year, you don't get entitled to it just because you individually are a good player. Just ask Bradley Beal that question. or Devin Booker?
Well, I also want to mention too. If you want to go back to Portland again, Damian Lillard's been the most vocal out everyone on this team. You haven't heard much from CJ McCollum. You haven't heard much from guys like Trevor Ariza. Carmelo's been on the fence about going and not going. Hassan Whiteside's been relatively quiet. Look at this team on paper. They should be higher than where they should be right where they were last year, but they're not. You know why they're not? Because the competition got way better in the West. And as a comment from Philly, who brings us all the great news, John Morant, Jared Jackson Jr., Dylan Brooks, etc. deserve that spot, and they do. Remember, the Grizzlies aren't supposed to be here. We all thought the Grizzlies were going to be, 10th in the West, on the outside looking in. They got a legitimate chance. And I think no one wants to play the Grizzlies, really, because they know John Morant's a freaking nature. John Morant will beat you. Jared Jackson is no scrub either. That's a nasty dynamic duo right there. And it's crazy teams like the NBA execs want to see LeBron James and Zion Williamson. Okay, I want to see that too. Not in Orlando. I don't want to see that in Orlando. Nobody wants to see that in Orlando because that's no one's home territory. Unless Orlando Magic, who I don't think who have their spot. But guess what? The fans make the matchup spectacular. So why would it even matter about this year? Because there's not going to be. Oh, I know why. Because this is like you said, a big marketing opportunity. Let's put Zion in here because Zion's going to make us the most money. Remember, we had a conversation. I think it was me and you all came and we said who's going to be the next player the NBA idolizes. They're talking about is going to be Zion Williamson. Me personally, I think John Morant has a fair shot and a great chance because he's a do-it-all guard. He's the guards that everybody likes. The shooting, the handles, and the dunking.
John Morant's Rookie of the Year. That's pretty clean cut. So following our immediate next announcement, we do have a quick plug for how you can help out with us. We will do our final segment, the best of the best, talking about the best tight end. We have about 3 minutes, so stay tuned. Know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this. All right, great. So, Gavin, let's get to it. Best of the best. We have about 2 minutes. So, in your opinion, who is the best tight end in the NFL currently?
I think it's Travis Kelce, man. You got to look at everything he does for the team. He's not just one of those possession receiver tight ends. He actually goes and runs after the catch, too. You can make the case for Zach Ertz, but Zach Ertz doesn't like contact. He's allergic to contact. You can make a case for Mark Andrews, but I'm not really sold on Mark Andrews just yet. So I think it's Travis Kelce.
Does George Kittle not exist?
I mean, he does, but not to me.
George Kittle is the one of 2 tight ends to finish in the top 5 in Pro Football Focus's blocking and catching ability. The other one, ironically, is Dallas Goedert, but we know that because George Kittle's tight end 1, he gets more production. He gets fed the ball more. I wish he was fed more in the Super Bowl. That's really kind of the X factor for that team. George Kittle's a machine. He saved them in the Saints game. He was given to him about 1 yard short on a shallow crosser. He went downfield. Talk about being allergic to contact. George Kittle's allergic to being in open space because he loves to just bulldoze people and get his way downfield. Talk about a guy like Dawson Knox, too, in that Patriots game a little while back. But in my opinion, George Kittle is the best tight end, and I think that the Niners lost the Super Bowl because they didn't use him enough.
Well, Pat Mahomes is a freak of nature, too, and you got to remember, they got Tyrann Mathieu on the other side. They also got a great front D-line, and the linebackers aren't the worst either. So, yes, you could say, well, they get the ball to George Kittle, but you got to remember who's on the other side of the ball, too.
I agree now. The Niners, I still haven't really digested the fact that they blew a 10-point lead with like 8 minutes left, considering they threw an interception. I'll be honest with you. I was rooting for the Niners in that game. I think that if I were to coach an offense, that's exactly how an offense would look. They run the ball. They run play action. I think Garoppolo's going to grow this year. I think they're going to be successful. Other than that, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. A lot of NFL talk today, and as we continue the discussion, we're closing in on about a month out from the NBA and NHL starting, and about a week or so from the MLB starting their camps. So it appears that sports is returning. Let's continue to unite, as that's our central message. Again, 10% of all donations go towards this month's Shriners Hospital for Children. Gavin, any closing remarks as we end this Thursday edition of the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show?
Yeah. Look, guys. First of all, I want to say thank you for coming out and supporting, me and Zach. We try to unite through sports, at a time when we need to, and we wanted to at least try it, and hopefully you guys are enjoying it and doing the same, and trying to unite with others as well. But make sure you guys share this, share the show with all your friends, and have them share it with your family, and your family share it. Make sure you subscribe and like this, and also check out our Patreon. Help us donate some money to Shriners Hospital so we can make some dreams come true down there. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Definitely, again, sharing doesn't hurt. Thank you so much, everyone. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, or if you know anyone that's interested in being a guest, always reach out to us. We're happy to do so, because we had yesterday a very, very exciting time with our guest. Hopefully, in the coming week or so, we're going to continue to bring on